Now, you will recall that a couple of weeks ago, about 24 elephants in Zimbabwe lost their lives to poachers. That brought the number of elephants' deaths in Zimbabwe to almost 70 in just 1 month. The use of cyanide has exposed the growing level of sophistication on part of the poachers and is a wake-up call that more needs to be done to protect our wildlife. Our Channels TV correspondent Cynthia Areh reports from Washington and would like to warn you that some of the visuals are disturbing.
It is often said that man's greatest enemy is man himself. What would make a person slay elephants like these ones just to get their parts? The answer is greed. And here is the result of that greed. In just 1 month, Zimbabwe has lost 62 of its precious elephants to cyanide poisoning. The use of the chemical hasn't sent shockwaves at all, as it's relatively easy to obtain in Zimbabwe.
Possibilities of trying to control this huge source of cyanide, which is creating so much revenue for the country, is going to be extremely difficult for us to do. So people have got access to this awful poison, and they don't understand the devastation that it causes by putting it into one waterhole, and how far that devastation reaches.
Speaking of devastation, the Director, Program Design of the African Wildlife Foundation, Jamil Mandima, shed more light on more of the adverse consequences of illicit poaching.
The ramifications of this crime actually transcend other sectors, and we know that the men and women that have a passion for protecting these resources are risking their lives when they're out there patrolling, against very sophisticated poachers. And we also know that a lot of these terrorist insurgencies can never have legitimate sources of financing, so they use this as a way to actually get revenue and income that they translate into arms and into displacing people.
Jamil goes on to explain the reason behind the success of the illicit business and the level of sophistication.
The basic reason why this is getting worse is because there's a market for it, and it's paying very well. You look at the price of ivory, you look at the price of rhino horn, it's just insane to think that this worthless in terms of what they can do for what is claimed, people are still willing to pay that. And that is why we are really seeing that level of sophistication, and obviously taking advantage of the challenges, real ones, in the source countries where the ability to deploy resources that are adequate to protect is obviously constrained and limited. And criminals take advantage of situations, and that's what we are seeing now.
But what exactly is the way forward?
It's about addressing the matter holistically. And what we are already doing is really looking at how do we ensure we can stop the killing in the source countries where these wildlife resources are, which means ensuring equipping the rangers and scouts adequately with basic things like their uniforms, their camping materials, the firepower they require, the rations for them to go out, and then high tech on how best to deploy efficiently. So that is critical, and then having backup aerial surveillance so that you can have very quick responses to emergencies.
Now, this is what attracts poachers to elephants to begin with, their tusks. And unfortunately, if nothing is done to urgently address the issue of poaching, then generations to come will only be left with pictures of what once was, but no longer is.
Well, Cynthia Areh now joins me for more on the efforts to save African elephants. So, Cynthia, good job there. But talking to that gentleman there, did you get the sense that they fear the terrorist groups are actually ahead of the curve already?
I wouldn't say the word should be fear, but I will say that it boosted the concern, because right now if their plan was to address the matter maybe a month from now, then it sped up the process to we need to do this maybe in a week's time.
Yes.
Jamil spoke about sensitization, because some people, for instance, we saw what happened on Friday with Arnold Schwarzenegger, who owned a tusk. He owned it just, as a result that he liked it, but he didn't know what the elephants went through. And when he saw pictures or got a better understanding of what was done to get those tusks, then he blew up the tusk.
So that's why I think there's also a lot of push for an outreach like this to the recipient countries, like in Asia, where it's a big market, that people should understand what it really takes just to get one task.
In truth, he also spoke about the cost of the tusk, about 250 tons, which is what a pair and a male elephant weighs. That's the 250 pounds, but 1 pound goes for about $1,500. Now, if you do the math, just one elephant, you can see how much that costs. Yeah. I don't really think the problem in those destination countries like Asia and Thailand, I don't think what should be addressed there is awareness. Because I think, based on what I was told, that the awareness is there, but it's as regards those who are maybe the individuals. Yeah. But in terms of like the organizational level, I think they have a better understanding of what...
But there's also the other point, the collaboration with some corrupt people locally, because at the end of the day, there are greedy people in those countries, the source countries, and within government and also civilians. So there's also a challenge of eliminating that, fighting the corruption that enables the criminals coming.
In that case, Jamil spoke more about, equipping the rangers with more sophisticated weapons, because, I mean, when we looked at what happened some weeks back, we're talking about cyanide poisoning. Yeah. That doesn't just come to you naturally. You have to spend some time really thinking about it. So it's about, that shows you the level of sophistication, showing what they're up against. Yeah. So we're seeing that what we're pushing for is equipping the rangers with more. Also, the use of sniffer dogs, so that even if they succeed in killing those elephants, at least to some extent, it can ruin the business of those who are paying for these, these tons of ivory. The use of sniffer dogs and drones and all those.
It's really scary,
yes,
especially that this is a multi-billion business, and so many people have an interest in this. Cynthia, thanks a lot for bringing this story to us. Well, Cynthia Areh is Channels TV correspondent based in Lagos, Nigeria.